Hey guys, this is John from CheatSheetPros.com. I'm going to go ahead and walk through the new sports betting tab and how it did last night and show you some of the trends that I noticed. And today, Thursday, February 27th, the sheet is free. Every Thursday I post it in my Facebook group for everyone to play with, try out. Premium members, we post it every day, twice a day. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to do is give you a walk around the sheet. So this looks a lot like our other betting tab, but if it's the first time you've seen it, it might be a little confusing. So I'm still working on the bet notifications up here. So if you're looking for a projected score, we're going to use this right here. This is the projected score and the total. We're using the last three model. The reason we're using the last three models is because we want to pick on the teams that are ice cold and we want to ride the teams that are red hot. Now these other two models here, you can watch them, don't use them. I'm tracking them for going forward to see what I like, what I don't like, and then this is just an average of all three. But right here, this is kind of what I'm basing my numbers off of. Here, this is new. So if you're looking at the sheet for the first time, you're going to look at this and be like, holy shit, it looks like a checkerboard. So we have each team here, and this is just like what you would see when you go to look at a box score, which you can see here. So we got field goals, percentage, threes, free throws, boards, blocks, steals, turnovers, etc., etc. So if you have Sportacular on your phone or you're looking at CBS or wherever this is, you're going to have the same look. So I did the same thing here. Now, a couple of different things is I pulled in the EFG percentage, so that gives you a little bit higher value for three-pointers made. So I'm using this for a projection model. I'm not necessarily comparing it to what they did. And then over here on advantage, now there's a column on each side, and I kept the column gray because I don't want to bore you with a bunch of small numbers. This only lights up and highlights, which you can see here in yellow, if there is a significant difference between the two. So here, total rebounds, you can see 50 to 56.7, almost 7 rebounds. That's something I want to highlight. On the very outside here under rank, you can see it's going to turn red, green. Now, I'm not going to show you every rank for every stat because it hurts your eyes, it's hard to look at, and it's hard to digest those numbers. So I'm only popping up the top 7 and the bottom 7. So top 7, they're in green, which you can see here, they're 6th in three-point percentage. And then the bottom 7 are going to turn red, which you can see field goal attempts, Utah, they're 30th. So those are some stats that you can look at. So it's a little bit easier on the eyes because if this was all filled with numbers, it would make you want to jump off of a cliff. So you can see here, quickly we see 3 red stats and then 1 difference, and theirs is basically free throw attempts. And then over here, these are some of the efficiency stats that I like to look at. The offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency, total efficiency, and then we got pace. And then if you don't like the efficiency numbers, then we do points per game allowed and scored. The efficiency, I'm going to go ahead and explain that real quick. That is how many points scored or allowed per 100 possessions. So how you would read this is Boston 1.13 on offense. That means they're scoring 113 points for every 100 possessions. Utah scoring 104. And then you flip it over on defense, Utah is giving up 116 points per 100 possessions. So one thing you want to do is compare the two offenses, compare the defenses, and then cross-compare Boston's offense versus Utah's defense. Okay, they're giving up a few more points, so we're going to give them a little bump. And then these two are about the same, so you could average it out in the middle. But then the difference between the two, this is your total efficiency. And if you want to know exactly where to look, if you don't have a lot of time, look at the navy blue. So here, here, and here. Those are the 3 main places to look. So this basically means that Boston is playing about 19 points better, offense and defense combined, per 100 possessions. So usually if this is double the spread, which the spread's 5, so I'd want to see this about 10, that's good. So at 0.19, that's really good. You can see they've got the offensive advantage and the defensive advantage. So that's a team. That's how we came up with Boston plus 180 last night. The last 3 model also had them winning 117 to 109. And then We skip down here. These are defensive allowed stats. I use these for some of the projections to see if a team's giving up a ton of steals or a ton of blocks, then maybe it's going to boost the other team. And then down here we have some more combined stats. So one of the things I look at when I'm betting totals is the total scored points per game and the total allowed points per game. And so you can see points per game, Boston scoring 119, Utah scoring 108. So we just add those together and put it in a nice little deal. And then I have a little pop-up here. If this number is over this total up here, it says over. And then the allowed points per game, these two are allowing these amounts. We add them together. We throw them down here in a little box. We have another pop-up. So if they're allowing what's over the total, then we're going to say, okay, over. So quickly, when I look at this, before I was calculating all this, and so on the new sheet, I wanted to just make a box here and say, okay, I can glance and say over, over. So each team combined scoring and each team allowing points are over what they're projected for the evening. So that kind of helps me look at a total. And then over here, I come up with an average efficiency number for offense and for defense. And so you can see over here for offense, we're at 113 to 104, so somewhere in the middle. It's about 108 combined. And then for defense, 106, 116. We're just going to average those and kind of come up with a middle number. And then the projected pace, you can see over here we got 105, 104. It's going to be pretty close. I'm just going to average those out. In this case, 105.1. And then so that's going to roughly give us about 229 points. So if I look at this and it says over, over, and this number is over the total, then that's something I want to consider maybe betting an over. You can also bounce over here and see what their percentage record is against the over. You can see Boston's only hitting the over 47% of the time, and then Utah 53% of the time. So that's one of the things that I like to look at. And then also, if somebody's out, this is our on-off player model, and I cleaned it up a little bit. You click in this box, and you can click down, and it's got all the players. So like if LeBron's out, click in there, and it will show you his on-off numbers. So these are the points scored and allowed. So when LeBron's on the court, they score about 117 and allow 106. When he's off the court, not scored, they score about 109 and they allow about 111. So the total's about the same, but there's big changes here. And then also if you're betting totals, you can look at the pace and see if the pace changes. But this doesn't change any of these stats, so this is completely separate. So the last thing I want to go ahead and show you here are this box and this box. So here we got team scoring margins, and so I found this fun and I kept looking it up, so I was like, I want to bring it in here. So the last 3 games, Boston's beating their opponents by 6.7 points per game, and Utah's getting beat by an average of 13 points per game. So the difference of this margin is 19.7. So I'm going to look here at the total efficiency number 1. Then I'm going to look here at the scoring margin number, and then that's going to kind of give me a good indication that if this last 3 model has the same thing, that's probably something I'm going to take a look at. And I also put the home and road splits in there. And then right here, so this is a little projected advantage for blocks and steals and for rebounding. And I found this to be key because most of the games on the other sheet that we did miss, it's because one team was really heavy on rebounding, really heavy on blocks and steals. And you can see the note down here, it just says the positive numbers in favor of the home team and the negative numbers in favor of the road team. So then this would be road advantage, road advantage. Now this is a small number, I'm not too worried about it. So that's a walk around the sheet. Don't worry about this. I black this out so you can't see it when you download the sheet. It's just some other calculations I do. So the first game we liked was Boston. That jumped right off the bat. So I'm going to pull in the sheet over here of what this would look like on the scoreboard, and we're going to take a look at some comparisons. So the blocks and steal advantage, we had it pretty much about the same, 1 or 2, and then we're going to look over here. So 7 and 4 is 11, 5 and 3, 8. So Boston was about +3. Rebounding, they were pretty close, 44, 41, and that's kind of what we had, pretty close. I'm just going to leave it at that and then move on. The main thing that jumped out on this one was right here you can see we had 3-point percentage, 41. They're 6th best. So they're 9% higher at shooting the 3, and they're taking more 3-point attempts. So when we project our scores, you can see I have them scoring about 42 points from 3s versus only 29. So this is a big advantage here. So let me pull that back up and see how they did. So 3-pointers, you can see they only took 26 of them, but they shot 42.3%, which is above their already top 6 average of 41, and so that gave them a good chunk of points. And then you can see over here, Utah stayed at 30%, even though they shot 43s, and their average was about 32, so they kind of stay there, so that was a good projection on the model. So for this game, it was a good one. +5 was a lock, and then we sprinkled a little bit on the money line and shot that out on Twitter. So let's go ahead and take a look at a different game. So I'm going to walk through each of these. So this Phoenix and Clipper game, I'm not going to get into a whole lot, because with the Clippers, Kawhi, Paul George, if they play, they don't play, it changes, it skews the stats because one of them's usually off every game. So we're going to leave that alone. I did post a thing, I believe, in the Facebook group on betting Clippers because they were all healthy and they end up covering, but nothing that popped on the sheet for that. So Dallas, this was another game that I wrote up in our 4-team parlay. So glancing at this, you can see there's a bunch of advantages over here for Dallas. And then let's take a look at those. So their field goal percentage is +9%. So that's really good. And then their 3-point attempts, they're shooting 14.3 more threes per game than San Antonio, and they're shooting just a couple percentage points better. They're rebounding just ahead of them, so I'd say they're even on rebounds. Slight advantage maybe over to Dallas. And then blocks and steals, we had them about the same. Turnovers, that's an advantage Spurs, but Aldridge was out. So I'm going to come over here, take a look at our last 3 model. And we had Dallas winning 122-111. And then we had them at a higher offense, better defensive efficiency, so they were about 12. So again, we're going to look over here at the spread 5, so we want to see a total efficiency of about 10 to be safe, and it came in at 0.12, which is 12. So we really like that. And then you can scroll down here through some of the other stats, blocks and steals. 0.9 -1, to me that's pretty much even. I'm not going to worry about that a whole lot. Scoring margin here is 13. So again, that's double the spread, so we like that. So last 3 games, Dallas is winning by 9. Spurs are losing by about 4. So let me see if I can pull up the stats here. And let's go back. And where are we at? Mavericks. So the Mavericks won and covered 109 to 103, but you can see the fourth quarter they let them catch up by 5, so they made it a little bit closer. And then when we come in here and take a look at the stats, so 3-point attempts, we would assume that Dallas is going to have a lot more. And so we're going to come over here, and so, okay, they shot 45 versus only 33, so that projection kind of stayed true. Both teams, they shot fairly about the same. They just took a lot more 3-pointers. And then blocks and steals, we had about the same. And where are they at? All right, so yeah, Dallas had an advantage there. But anyways, we projected it over here, -5. We had them winning by 11-ish. And they end up winning and covering the spread, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. One of the other things that jumped out is they're 19-9 on the road, 6-4 last 10 with a streak of 1, so that was good. But again, the total efficiency was double the spread, the margin was double the spread, and then our last 3 model had them projected to win, so Dallas became one of our core bets last night. And then we're going to go up here and take a look at Houston. Houston was another core play, but again, we said just take them on the money line, be safe, don't be greedy. And so what we liked here, they were laying a lot of points. The money line to me was a lock. So Houston over here at home is 20-8. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They've won 4 straight. And you can see our last 3 model, we had them blowing them out. So 129 to 107. We had them easily covering the 12 points. And then look at this, the efficiency differences, 30. So 30 points better per 100 possessions. That kind of blew me away. So if you want to lay the 12, that's fine. I'm not going to throw a fit there. Blocks and steals. Now this is where it gets interesting. So total efficiency is huge over here to Houston. And then for scoring margin, huge, 31.3. So that's more than double the spread. It's 2.5 times the spread. And then over here, projected advantages. So blocks and steals, we had to go to Houston by about 4.1. And then rebounding, we had a huge advantage to Memphis. But as I wrote up in the article, we don't care about the rebounding because Houston is shooting a ton of threes. So they don't really care about it. They're shooting 24 more three-point attempts per game than Memphis. So that's number one in three-point attempts per game. And they're shooting 42%, which is third best for a 9% advantage. So that's where Houston really gets the advantage. If they get hot from the three-point line, it's lights out. And also, they're shooting decent from the free throw line, so I give them a slight advantage there. But yeah, the rebounds are definitely to Memphis. But, catching a few more rebounds isn't going to change it. Blocks and steals, so this jumps out. So this is kind of huge. So steals, we have about 5 more per game. And then blocks, a couple more per game for a total of 17.6 down to 11. So that's pretty decent. And let me pull that one up and we'll take a look at it real quick. I'm not used to using this website. I typically use my phone in Sportacular. Okay, so you can see here, we had 129-107. They won 140-112. So either way, blew the spread away. We had it. They had it. Enough said. Three-pointers. So they shot 50 three-pointers. So we have them averaging 48.3. They shot 50, which you can see here. We had them at 42%, and they shot at 46, so even better. And then over here, Memphis tried to get back in the game. They took a ton of three-point attempts, but they stuck at their 33% make ratio and just didn't get there. Neither team really had a ton of free throw attempts. You can see here, like, we had a free throw advantage for Houston, 76% to 69%. I believe it needed 1 more percent to hop up over here as an advantage. But you can see Houston shot 86 and they shot 61. So they did have a advantage on the free throws. Boards, of course, Memphis, we knew that, 49-44, so they were plus 5 on the boards, but it didn't really matter. And then blocks and steals, so we had 15-12, so they were plus 3. So we had them at about a 4-point margin ahead, but not a ton. And then over here, the turnovers within 3, I'm not going to worry about too much. Rockets had 4 more turnovers, and, that's fine. But anyways, that's kind of how we came up with the Houston game. And again, we just said take it on the money line, be safe. So Orlando, Atlanta, we didn't have this game as a core play, but I'm going to touch on it real quick. So we had model last 3. Spreads 2.5 for Orlando. We had them winning and covering by 5. Efficiency number, they were pretty much about even there. Nothing really jumped out. Blocks and steals. Now, blocks and steals were about a 4-point advantage for Orlando, so I would give them about 4 extra possession attempts for the game, which is how we're coming up with them winning by 5. Scoring margin, both pretty close. Road versus home, last 10. I mean, everything here was pretty much about the same. So we had it as a close game, but Orlando coming out ahead, and I think they covered that. Let me look and see real quick. I believe they did. Scroll down here. Okay, yeah, so they won 130-120. So we had them winning by 5. They won by 10. That's pretty close. So let's go ahead and move on to another game. Nothing big jumped out there. And then Miami, so this is a game that we lost. So I had Miami as a core play in our 4-team parlay, and it was the only one that did not win, but I said just take them on the money line and be safe. I really liked them here, and again, they lost by a couple. We'll take a look at it. So here in the model last 3, I should have paid attention. We had this projected, my own sheet had this projected as a tight game, 123-118, but I was stuck on this big spread and them being at home, and I was looking down here at this home record of 23-3, getting excited, but 4-6. I mean, you look at Miami at home, 23-3, and then Minnesota 9-19 on the road, 1-9 last 10, lost 5 straight. You get kind of excited about a Miami money line being in your parlay. And then you look here at the efficiency, Miami plus 14. It's not double the spread, which is what I always stress. It is pretty much about the spread plus a couple. Scoring margin, 15. It's pretty close to the spread. And then blocks and steals advantage. Yes, that's an advantage for Miami, but not by a ton. So we had this at 123-118, which would have been take the points with Minnesota, but I went against that. And let's see here. All right, so 129-126. So We had it tight. It was tight. We had Minnesota covering. Minnesota covered. But again, I'm not taking credit for that because I said to play Miami money line, and that's the one that killed me in the parlay. As far as stats here, I'm not going to dive on them too much. You guys kind of know the point and the things we're looking at, and I want to get through a couple more games. So Charlotte Knicks, fuck this game. I'm not even looking at this. I mean, we have it projected at 191. The total's 207. I mean, these teams 4-6, lost 4, lost 1. I mean, losing records, losing overs, can't score. A combined scoring margin of, what's that, minus 32? I mean, just awful. So I'm not even going to look at that game. And then here, Cleveland, Philadelphia. So this one was interesting. So the first thing that jumps out, everybody knows, Philadelphia at home, 27-2. That's phenomenal. And I apologize, I may be a game behind on my records. On the road, they're 9-20. So that is a huge disparity between the numbers. So if you go and sprinkle a little bit of money against them every time they're on the road, I mean, it's a 7.5-point dog. That's fine. And Cleveland did end up winning this game. Ironically enough, when I went back this morning to look at it, we had it projected as Cleveland winning 113-110. And I was like, holy shit, why did I not sprinkle a little bit on the Cleveland money line? You can see there's a lot of advantages over here, but this is one team when you have a big disparity between home and road. Be careful because these numbers are going to show the average and not necessarily at home versus on the road. But if you look over here, again, look at the Blues. So the total efficiency, we have about 4 points to Philadelphia, but again, that's home and road. So that being inside the number of 7.5 would worry me, and then seeing this road record would also concern me. And then we come down here, blocks and steals. So blocks and steals, we had a big advantage to Philadelphia, but Ben Simmons wasn't playing. Rebounding, for some reason, it had a big advantage for Cleveland. So that's kind of how we would look at it. Scoring margin, pretty close. But look at this one for Philadelphia. Winning at home by 10.2 points per game and losing by almost 6 on the road. Yeah, pretty shocking. So here I would guess the blocks and steals to go to Philadelphia and rebounding to be a big advantage for Cleveland. So let's take a look and see how this one did. I've looked at it, but I can't remember what it was. All right. So Cleveland ended up winning 108-94. We had Cleveland winning 113-110 as a dog. Again, not taking credit for it. I didn't bet it. I should have. I'm looking back like an idiot now. And so what do we say over here? So rebounding, yeah, that's kind of shocking for me. So rebounding, we had advantage 8.2 to Cleveland, the home team. And then the total rebounds here was 49-32. So they had a huge advantage. On the rebounding, which kind of surprised me. Philadelphia is typically a good rebounding team. And then blocks and steals, for some reason, didn't show up there. 7.4, that is to Philadelphia, so let's see how that did. And so, yeah, they had a huge advantage in blocks and steals. So 13-9, 22-9. So they were plus 13 in blocks and steals. So what I'm trying to stress is this is a good indicator of projected advantages. I've spent a lot of time kind of putting some numbers in this, and when there's a big, if it's 1 or 2, like throw it out the window, don't waste your time. But when there's a big disparity like this, we know blocks and steals are going to go here, rebounding is going to go here, and sometimes you'll get it going to the same team, and then that's a big key. So that's one way to look at the game, and I think we got one more game here let's look at, and I'll wrap this vid up. So Brooklyn, Washington, I like Brooklyn here. When you look at the model last 3, we had Washington winning a tight game. I mean, Washington plus 1.5 dog, we had them winning. That's close. I look for big disparities in numbers and then try to figure out why. So the sheet one, I bet Brooklyn, so I'm not taking credit for it again. I'm just going back and looking at the numbers. And when we look through everything here, let me see if there's anything that jumps out. So Brooklyn had a big defensive advantage, 1.01, so about 10 points. They were both about the same on offense. So Brooklyn, was well over double the spread. So that's why I picked that game and liked it. Pace, points per game, defensive, nothing huge jumps out here. And then you can see here the projected advantages are pretty close. Rebounding we gave to Brooklyn 3.7, so give them about 4 rebound advantage. Blocks and steals 2, that's the same. Scoring margin, this one was kind of shocking. So Brooklyn's winning their last 3 by 6 points a game, and then Washington's losing by about 6 points a game. So that, with this advantage, I said, hey, why not? Let's go back and look at this game and see how it ended up. So I like to go back and check stats and see like what works, what doesn't. And you can see we had it as a tight game, 117-114. It ended 110-106, almost perfect to the number. We had Washington by 4, or Washington by 3. They won by 4, which wasn't good for my Brooklyn bet, needless to say. And then down here, what did we say on rebounds? So we had about 4 extra rebounds to Brooklyn. And yeah, Brooklyn dominated the rebounds. So they had 56-39. So that's huge. And then the steals we had pretty close. And it was 11-8 blocks and steals. That's pretty good. So it looks like Brooklyn had a bunch of turnovers here. They had 18 to only 11. We come over here, look at our turnovers. And that's almost flip-flopped. So Brooklyn's been averaging only 13 turnovers a game, and they jumped to 18. And then Washington's been averaging almost 18, and they took that all the way down to 11. So it was almost a complete 180 for them, which helped them squeak out the win, which was good. And then it looks like field goal was about the same, 3-point attempts the same, 3-point percentage the same. And then so when I'm glancing down here, everything stands the same. There's nothing that really jumps out at me. And then when I look over here, you shot 41, 42. That's the same. Okay, so they shot really good. They got hot from three-point land. So you can see over here, Washington is shooting about 35% from beyond the arc, and they shot 38%. So I guess that's not huge. I guess Brooklyn shot shitty, you could say. They're normally shooting 36%, and they only shot 27%. So they fell a little bit there, had a few more turnovers. Free throws, man, they went to the line a ton in this game. So we had 22, and they went 35. So, oh yeah, they should have won this game. Washington shot 81% on only 16 free throws, which you can see here. They're a good free throw shooting team at 79%. They shot 81. That's good. And then Brooklyn went to the line 35 times, shot 68%, which is less than their number. So 3 points, they shot less. Free throws, they shot less. And they gave up a shit ton of turnovers and still only lost the game by a couple of baskets. So that's not too bad. So anyways, just to recap, when you're looking at this sheet and it's free today, look at the last 3 model, number 1. Look at the total efficiency. Look down here at any advantages, and then look at the scoring margin. Those are the 4 things you want to look at. Once you look at those, it'll kind of tell you a little bit about how the game's going to play out, who's going to do what, and then come over here and just kind of take a look at these numbers. And you can even stick at this column right here. These 2 columns will tell you any big differences to keep your eye on and take a look at it. But anyways, I hope you guys like the sheet. I'm going to change these bet notifications up here to pop up and do like different tier systems of bets. And again, when people's out, go over here, take advantage of this on-off database that we put in, picking the players. Check the records. If you see anything that you want on the sheet, let me know. Vegas Insider, their percentages didn't pull through the last couple of days. I emailed them. They said it's a technical issue that's coming back up. But anyways, I really like this sheet, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun betting games the rest of the NBA season. So if you're not in the free Facebook group, go ahead and sign up. And you guys, thanks for watching.